Welcome, Letchworth detectives. I'm Conrad. I'm an outdoor educator with the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation at Letchworth State Park, and today I have a mystery for you. It looks like there are some wires going in and out among the trees. Is someone running some electricity in the woods? Is there natural gas lines or hot water? Or what's going on here? I think we can use our nature tools to figure out what these lines are and how they help us every single day. The first step that we might take to figure out what these are is by looking at the kinds of trees that they're weaving in and out of. We're standing right next to one now, and you look closely at the bark. Now, some trees, when they're very young, the bark is all smooth, but as they age, they start to take on more character when they get older. And these trees have some deep lines, some deep cracks in the bark. Now, tree scientists might call those furrows. This tree, as it ages, starts to get crackly and sometimes even peely bark. Crackly and even peely bark. If we take a closer look at one of the branches, like this one right here, we can notice a really interesting branching pattern. You see this branch here, if we treat this as the middle, we run our fingers down. Do you notice how my fingers hit two twigs at the same time? These twigs, if this is the middle, are coming out of this branch symmetrically, with symmetry. One on top, one exactly across from it on the bottom. It happens a couple of times, like over here. You notice if this is the middle twig here, then these come out to either side. One on top, one on bottom, symmetrically. A tree scientist might call that opposite branching, and only 4 kinds of trees in this area have opposite branching. That's a really important clue. Lastly, while we have the luxury of this branch, let's take a look at these buds. These are where the leaves will come out in the spring. If we gently, with our fingers, push down on the bud, ooh, that's really sharp. It feels almost like it would puncture my skin if I kept pushing. Ow. It's really sharp. So let's put all those clues together. We have a really sharp, pointy bud. It doesn't squish when we put our fingers on it. And those buds are attached to twigs that sometimes have opposite branching. Branches, little twigs coming out on symmetrical sides of the same branch. And the bark on the older trees is kind of crackly and even a little bit wavy and peely in some places. These must be sugar maple trees. And sugar maples are special for a lot of reasons. Their lumber is useful for making furniture, chairs, and tables and things. But most importantly, they have a really high sugar content in their sap. It's like the blood of the tree, moving nutrients up and down inside. At this time of year, with warm days, cold nights, nights in the freezing temperatures and days above freezing, the sap is flowing through the tree a lot. And some people like to tap little holes in the trees, harvest that sap, boil it down to maple syrup. And that's what these lines are. They're not cords, they're tubes. They're hollow in the middle, and the sap is flowing through them like a pipe, all flowing downhill to this collection tank. And we here at the Humphrey Nature Center collect that sap every few days, and we boil it down to maple syrup in our sugar house. And if you want to put your detective skills to the test, try to find a sugar maple tree in your neighborhood. Make sure you look for peely bark and opposite branching and a really pointy bud on the end of the twig, and especially look for places where branches have broken off or maybe an injury to the trunk very recently within the last year, so that some sap might naturally be flowing out of there. And watch over the next couple days. Once you find one, try to see if you can find any animals that are visiting that little sap leak, because we're not the only ones who enjoy that sweet syrup and that sweet sap. There are lots of different kinds of animals, chipmunks and mice, but also the much more common animals are very small insects. Sometimes like to drink that sap. Some of them depend on it. Some pretty obscure, unusual, very camouflaged kinds of insects live in the woods. We would hardly ever see them at our gardens because they fly very early in the year and they don't drink from flowers like a lot of other butterflies that we might be used to seeing. They depend on these sap flows from sugar maples and other kinds of trees to survive flying around even on a day like today, where it's above freezing, but there's still snow on the ground. There are no wildflowers to drink from, even if they wanted to. These are butterflies like morning cloak butterflies, comma butterflies, question mark butterflies, all different kinds that fly early in the year. They depend on sap flows to survive these periods of the year with almost no flowers. Keep an eye on that. If you really want to put your Letchworth detective skills to the test, try to find these sap collection tubes in Letchworth State Park. Come through the cast iron entrance, and you'll follow the park road, and you'll see a side access road that says Humphrey Nature Center on the sign. There will be a big leaf on it. Take that road, and that's the road right over here on the other side of that snowbank. And if you keep following that road, you'll first notice the tubes here. You can check those out. But if you keep going, you'll come right to the parking lot for the Humphrey Nature Center. You can come right on in and talk to us about how we collect maple sap and how we make maple syrup. We might even be able to give you some insider knowledge about how to collect sap and make syrup right in your house using household materials. Well, thank you so much for joining me for today's Letchworth Mystery. If you have any questions about maple sap or maple trees or insects that depend on maple sap, please put a comment in the comment section below the video. Share this video with your friends to put their Letchworth detective skills to the test. And as always, like Letchworth State Park's Facebook page to stay tuned for more Letchworth Mysteries.